Miss Tremblay. So today we are going to talk about color theory. We're going to talk about our second part of color theory, which is color schemes. But before we get into that, let's do a little bit of review so that we can remember what we learned about color theory back many ages ago when we were all in school together. So when you look at your color wheel, you have three different types of colors. So the first type of color is your primary color. Your second type of color is your secondary color. And then your third type is your tertiary colors. So just to give you guys an overview in text, in case you have trouble following along without text written down, we've got our primaries, so our yellow, red, blue, all evenly spaced on the color wheel with three different colors in between them. Then we have our secondaries, and remember that to get our secondary, we're going to mix the primary colors on either side. So it's really important when you're constructing your color wheels that you put your secondaries in the right spot. So because green is made by mixing yellow and blue, we are going to have green in between those two colors. Yellow and red make orange, so orange is going to be in between these two colors. And then, of course, red and blue make purple or violet on this color wheel. Same thing. And so violet's going to be in between these two colors. And then to get our tertiary colors, we just mix the two colors that are on either side. We get our tertiary, which is a combination of these two colors. This color wheel is nice because it's splitting your colors into the cool colors, so the greens, blues, and purples. And then the warm colors, which are the reds, oranges, and yellows, and that's going to be important when we talk about color schemes. And the other term that we have to remember from the color wheel is complementary. So complementary colors are always a primary and a secondary that are across from each other on the color wheel. So yellow and purple, blue and orange, and green and red. So JMU, UVA, Virginia Tech, and Christmas, which is what's left over. So whatever you need to help you remember the complements, if you don't have a color wheel, use some sort of memory device to help you remember. All right, so the other terms that we talked about, which we need to refresh our memory on, are tints, tones, and shades. So tints, tones, and shades are ways to adjust the value of a pure color. So remember, value is just how white or how black something is. So we start with our pure color, and if we add white to it, we get a tint. If we add gray to it, we get a tone. And if we add black to it, we get a shade. So here is tones, tints, shades, and then value. So how light or dark something is. All right, so let's get into color schemes. Our first color scheme is what's called monochromatic. So monochromatic color uses a single color. So mono means one or single, and chroma means color. So monochromatic color schemes are a single color. So you're going to take just one color, and then you're going to add tones and tints and shades to get your highlights and your shadows. So this is a blue monochromatic painting. So we've got some pure whites, blue that's had a lot of white added to it, blue that's had a little bit of black added to it to get our dark values, and we have a single color painting. So you can do this in just black, white, and gray if you don't want to use any color. You can really do any color on the color wheel and do a monochromatic painting. So here's a red. You can see the lighter areas are a very pale pink, and then the darker areas are a much darker red. So our number 2 color scheme, our next color scheme, is actually kind of 2 color schemes in one, which is warm and cool. So warm color schemes just use the warm colors, so red, orange, and yellow. And cool color schemes just use the cool colors, which are purple, blue, and green. So those are pretty easy, and you're always going to use one or the other. If you use them together, it just becomes a rainbow. So you can have a warm color scheme or a cool color scheme. This one tends to throw people a little bit. So let's talk about it and talk about why there can be confusion between analogous color schemes and other types of color schemes. So analogous color schemes are just made up of colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. So instead of taking a color from here and one from over here, one from over here, you're taking 3 or 4 colors that are all next to each other. So 3 or 4 colors all in a row. Now, if you look at this, you can have color schemes that are analogous and also warm, and color schemes that are analogous and also cool. But you can also have analogous color schemes that have both warm and cool colors, where those colors touch on the color wheel. So it's possible to have more than one color scheme all at once. And this is coming from the same meaning of analogous that we would use if we were writing a story in English, and it just means 2 things that are similar to each other. So we've got colors that are similar to each other because they're next to each other on the color wheel. All right, so our 4th color scheme is complementary. And complementary is really easy because it just uses a complementary pair of colors. So this artist has decided to use all 3, but they've divided up the page so that each section for each complementary pair is separate. And so here we've got our yellow and purple complement. Here we've got our red and our green. And here we've got our orange and our blue. So remember that colors are always the brightest when they're next to their complement. So complementary color schemes can be really difficult to look at just because of how bright they look. So you always want to be keeping that in mind when you're using complementary color schemes, that they don't get overwhelming, or that your intention as an artist is to make a really bright composition that's gonna really stand out when people look at it. Okay, so the last 2 are the ones that people have the most trouble memorizing. And so let's talk about how you get these color schemes, and hopefully that will help you remember them when you hear the word. So triadic color schemes, we've got this word here, tri. Tri means 3. So right away you know you're going to have 3 colors in a triadic. And triadic color schemes are 3 colors that are equally spaced on the color wheel. So if I start with yellow and I have 2 other colors that I'm going to use, I know that I'm going to count over 4. I'm going to use red, count over 4. I'm going to use blue. And so those 3 colors are evenly spaced on the color wheel. And those are all primary colors. So you can have a primary complement. This dotted line here is showing the secondary complement. And then you can even have tertiary complements. So if I started with this red purple, I'd count over 1, 2, 3, 4. I'd use this yellow orange, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'd use this blue green. So these 3 colors could be a tertiary. And I could even do the other 3 tertiary colors. So the purple, yellow, green, and red, orange could make another tertiary color scheme. So triadic, 3 colors evenly spaced. You can have primary, secondary, or tertiary. So here is an example of a primary triadic. Tends to be very bright and looks a lot like kind of grade school colors. So you see a lot of primary triadic color schemes in elementary school. And then here's our secondary triadic. This is a photograph. So we have purple, orange, and green. So our last one is what's called a split complementary color scheme. So split complement starts with a regular pair of complements, so in this case yellow and purple. But for one of the colors, instead of taking the complement to yellow, we're going to take the 2 colors on either side. So we are literally splitting the complement into 3 instead of 2. So we have yellow, and then we have the purple blue on this side of purple, and we have the purple red on this side. So we can go in the opposite direction. We can take purple and go and use the colors on either side of yellow. So we can use this yellow, green, and this orange, which is what we show over here. So split complement is splitting a complementary pair in 2. You can do that with your other 2 complements. You can do blue and orange and take a split complement. You can do red and green, take a split complement. So these tend to be less overwhelming than just using the complementary pair. So you see this a lot in like house design and in weddings. So those are our 6 color schemes. And for your next steps, you're going to be doing a worksheet, and you're going to be using each one of these color schemes to color in a section of the worksheet. So once you guys have done that, you can upload it to Classroom, and I will give you my feedback.